Yes, hello everyone. Welcome back to another weekend review show on Clare. Fáilte Ash. Good show ella on show Aaron Clare. My name is Séamus Brady. I'm the host. I'll be with you, and so will Liam White back on the show. Liam, it's good to have you back, man. What a weekend!
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Seamus. It's been a while. Yeah, I'm as red as you can imagine. It's not great weather for people like us, but we move. But yeah, no, a stacked weekend, absolutely stacked weekend of games from all across the country in all codes, and plenty of talking points. Anyways, no doubts about that. Some significant results which will hinder the rest of the championship. So yeah, looking forward to getting into it.
Absolutely. Well, we have a few people watching. We've plenty of comments in. Big shout out to Brian O'Riordan who's dropped in a lot of comments. Brian, I will get to that as we work through. And yeah, basically, if you are new around here, the ticker down the bottom will tell you how we run things. So throw in your comments. Let us know your personal highlights from the weekend's action. As Liam said there, we had plenty. But Liam, we are going to dive into the results that just took place literally 2 hours ago, 1 hour ago. What a result this was. Limerick strike back. Limerick 326, Cork 116 at the Gaelic grounds. I mean, if ever a performance made you be like, wow, like the first half that Limerick put on with the goals from Gillan and from Adam English, just awesome. Real showcasing of the power that they still possess.
Yeah, I mean, if there's Limerick, like you said, the Empire strikes back. It truly did. Anyone that was writing off Limerick for the All Ireland this year, I don't think they'll be doing that now. Anyways, that's for sure. And whether people will be taking back their estimations about whether Cork will win it or not, waits to be seen. Pat Ryan spoke very honestly on RT Sport there, just about Limerick were better, they worked harder, and they're just going to have to perform better next week against Waterford at home. They'll owe it to their support, because there was a great Cork support there today. But just from the first whistle, to be honest, from the first score of the game, English laid it off to Lynch laid it off to Morrissey. The way they just made that move, Barcelona-esque move, you just knew from there, you're like, right, this could be a long day. And Morrissey was getting a score, then again 2 seconds later, he had 2 points within 90 seconds, and you were thinking, right, this could be a long afternoon for Cork. Yeah, just Limerick were absolutely incredible from start to finish. First of all, from a Cork perspective, that was an atrocious performance. Like, it genuinely was. Like, considering what they did to them last year in the championship, considering the way they started against Limerick in the league was how Limerick started here today. Only there was no comeback from Cork today like there was from Limerick that day. The full back line from Limerick was so exposed. Like, Niall O'Leary had a torrid time on Aaron Gillan. I thought Owen Downey had a really tough time with Shane O'Brien. Like, Shane O'Brien, I don't think scored that much, or did he score at all? But just his movement and his physicality and his speed just absolutely bullied him all over the place. Sean O'Donoghue had a tough afternoon. Rob Downey struggled on Garrod Hegarty. You put someone the same height, the same size, same ability as Rob Downey on him, like a Garrod Hegarty, and you saw the result there. Hegarty was just tapping the ball over the bar with absolute ease, with or without the wind. Just the marking from Cork was awful. There was no marking whatsoever half the time. Limerick had all the time in the world to be picking out their men, to be finding the full forward line. I know Kyle Hayes was unbelievable. He got man of the match from RT, but for me, he only scored 1 point from play. But Cian Lynch, I mean, call him Messi, call him Maradona, call him Zidane, whatever you want. But he was Michael Jordan, but he was the instigator today. He was unbelievable. His link-up play, his understanding with Nicky Quaid, his understanding with Adam English in the middle, with Gillan in the full forward line was exceptional. Limerick's work rate as well was outstanding. It was absolutely terrific. Their strength, their tenacity in the tackle, winning the ball back, turnovers was absolutely just on fire. Like Cork as well, they only had 2 points from play after 23 minutes. That is not what we've come to expect from Cork, especially the full forward line. Patrick Horgan was really the only one that you could have looked at and said he was the only one that looked like a spark, or the only one that could get a score from the full forward line. Brian Hayes was struggling big time. Alan Connolly, the first time I found out he got the ball was in the second half, when he did eventually get on the ball and he won a free, and he was doing that dart and run at the fullback that we've become used to, but it just didn't happen enough. It just didn't. And yeah, Limerick were absolutely on fire. I've been a big admirer of Adam English for a long time, and today was arguably, in my opinion, his best performance in a Limerick jersey. He was absolutely outstanding. He was terrific. The goal he got, like you said, was unbelievable. The penalty as well in the second half that Cork gave away was just silly from Downey, to be honest. Like once you're bringing Aaron Gillan, once you're pulling out of him, dragging out of him, he's obviously going to go down, but like there was no arguments. The referee was absolutely right to give it. And it was a shame from a Cork perspective because Horgan had just blasted in a 21-yard free, similar to what Sean Curry did against Kilkenny today, only Horgan's one went into the top corner. And to then just concede a penalty up the other end straight away, it's just horrible from them. But Limerick showed today why they've won 6 in a row in Munster. They showed why they were on the verge of 5 in a row last year. And I'd say they took that defeat to Cork last year very, very personally. 2-18 to 9 points at halftime is an outrageous scoreline. It's standing ovation going off the pitch, and they richly deserved it. But yeah, there's so much for Cork to work on for next weekend against Waterford. It's frightening.
No, it certainly is. This performance reminded me of, you remember like the Munster hurling final against Tip in 2021, where they just came out in the second half and blew them away. Like in terms of a half and the performance that they gave in that first half against Cork, they decimated a team that had beat them twice last year. And a lot of people were kind of saying that, Cork were the kryptonite, if you like, to Limerick, that Limerick wouldn't be able to get back at them. And yeah, just the way that they performed in that first half was terrifying to look at. And Gillan's goal was superb. Adam English's goal was superb. We've commented in here about Cian Lynch. A2 says, once they had a lead, it was over. Cian Lynch, an absolute joy to watch. You pay to see him play magician. And Brian also says the flicks, tricks and touches from Cian Lynch was incredible. What a magical player. You mentioned it there as well. For Limerick as well, another one of the million positives it feels like from this game is the form of Cian Lynch, because it feels like as good as he's been, we haven't seen him at his best over the last 2 years, I think. But by God, that was as good as we've ever seen him.
Yeah, no, he was absolutely terrific. Just some of his flicks, like even at one stage, Martin Morris was just saying, how does he do that? And I was wondering, especially like when you've 45,000 people looking at you and it's the most intense game of the year. It's a hot day as well. And you've bodies, big men around you, and you're just doing flicks and tricks like he was and picking out the passes that he was. Never looking to be selfish. Maybe on one or two occasions he could have been and popped it over the bar, but he was always looking for the right man in the right position, which makes him a completely it just separates him from the rest of players across the country, really. I thought he kind of came back to his old self in a way against Waterford the last day to a degree, but here he stepped it up another level. I think another big positive for Limerick as well is their bench as well. Peter Casey came on, scored a couple of points. Michael O'Neill just came on and just strut around the place and got three magnificent points from my recollection as well. He was just unbelievable. And like when you're bringing players like that off the bench and you see what they do have in the starting 15, it's terrifying. Like we've mentioned over the last while who has the best squad in the country, and I think after today you've still got to say Limerick do have the best squad in the country if you're bringing the likes of them off the bench, and like they would start for every other team across the country, let's be honest.
Yeah, they would. Jer asks here, was there nobody else to put on the freeze after Huggy put so many wide? Again, is that an issue for Cork? Maybe not having someone behind him?
Well, Fitzgibbon was anonymous in this game, so maybe you could have thought if he'd gotten a free or two over the bar, maybe he could have done something for him. Decky Dalton went off injured early on, which was a massive, massive miss for them as well. Now, Brian Roach, I felt, came on and actually did all right in patches, to be fair to him. Like, he certainly wasn't the worst on the pitch. Jamie Harndy came on. He actually played very well as well. He got 2 good points, won a free as well. But yeah, look, Horgan still hit a few nice frees over the bar at the same time and took his 21-yard free, buried it into the back of the net. So I don't think Horgan's free taking today was really the big issue for Cork, to be honest with you. And I don't think it would have made much of a difference in the end. And look, Horgan's an experienced free taker. I wouldn't worry about him missing a couple today. He's still got a big number of them, especially a few long range ones in the second half, albeit with the wind on his side. But yeah,
it was just that type of day for Cork, though, wasn't it? Like, it was just that type of day where all systems were failing. Like, they couldn't shut down the Limerick forwards. They couldn't punish Limerick down at the other end. Some of the frees didn't go over. Like, it just was that type of day. And look, when Limerick perform like that, when Limerick perform like that, it almost seems like they've heard you talk about them in the back room or something, that they're coming out and they're just going to absolutely tear you apart. Because when Limerick have that momentum, that special momentum that they had in the second half of that Munster final against Tip a few years ago, the same energy that they had against Cork in this first half, they are unstoppable. Like when they really get going and the crowd get behind them, they are unstoppable. And the team that they're always compared to is that Kilkenny team of the 2000s that did the 4 in a row as well. And what I was asking at the start of this year was I was saying, what did that Kilkenny team do when they lost to Tip in 2010? They came back and they won it in 2011 and they won it in 2012. And they proved, and then they won it in 2014 and 2015. They proved without any question that they were the best across what you could consider to be two completely separate eras. Limerick are now being asked that same question. Cork beat you. They were your undoing in the 2024 championship. Now, how do you respond in 2025? If they can come back and win the All-Ireland, it's a monumental achievement that puts them even more up there competing with that Kilkenny team for the title of the greatest team of all time.
Yeah, and you factor in that Kilkenny also got to the final in 2016 when really they probably shouldn't have, considering the amount of players they had injured as well.
Yeah.
Tipperary, you know. So yeah, no, they're right up there. They absolutely are. And like I think I said to myself during the week that Limerick will win this game, but Cork I feel might win the Munster final. I'm really starting to reconsider that now. This Limerick team just looks unstoppable, and like you said, when they're playing like this, there's not a team across the country that can stop them, really. Like you were looking at Cork as possibly the best of the rest to try and take down Limerick, and you see what they've done to them there today. Just absolutely random socks from minute 1 to minute 70. It wasn't even a contest, to be honest with you. So yeah, that is the big for Limerick, and John Kiley be well aware of that as well. He wants Limerick to be the best, and he knows that, you know, they didn't perform last year in that semi-final. You know, Cork were well worth their win. Now saying that, Limerick, it was a 2-point defeat. You know, they still could have edged it at the end, and nobody would have said anything after that. They'd have just said, you know, Limerick get the job done when they probably shouldn't have. But, you know, I'd say they're probably more hungry now than ever to get the job done, because, like you said, losing in the way they did last year, and after being so dominant over the last number of years, and especially as well seeing they're two big rivals in Cork and Clare competing in an All-Ireland final last year. I've no doubt in my mind that they'd have been watching that final last year and thinking we should be there. And given this day, given their performance away to Waterford, which was also exceptional, and listen, they went out to Thurles, which we've seen there today is a tough place to go to, and to get a draw on a wet day as well. Yeah, they're probably now going to be the front runners in the morning to bring Liam McCarthy back to the treaty.
Well, you'd be certainly brave to bet against them, wouldn't you? We've loads of comments flooding in here about how good Limerick's performance was. I'll start with Brian O'Riordan. Says the strength off the Limerick bench is incredible. To be able to bring off that standard is amazing. Sean O'Malley says this will benefit Cork going forward, though. They know what to expect from Limerick when they're motoring and are bound to not let that happen again. John Coleman says too many injuries last season for Limerick. It cost them. A2 says Limerick are walking the All-Ireland lads. And Brian says this was very big and a massive statement. Limerick are unbeatable when they play like this. And Fia Innes says this was probably Lynch's finest performance. And then this from a Clare man is a hell of a compliment. Jared says, in fairness, given the difference in championship format, Limerick edged the great Kilkenny team, having done 2 round robins in a row. I did always say that what Limerick had to come through in Munster was far harder. Like on a different planet harder than what Kilkenny had to come through in the Leinster Championship. Like Dublin back then in the late 2000s were not as good as we are now. Offaly were on the downturn at that point. Wexford were not anywhere near as good as they are now back then. Kilkenny basically walked Leinster every year, and that was kind of half the reason why Galway were thrown in there as well, because Leinster needed a competitor to Kilkenny. And so bear in mind, Limerick have had 2 teams who didn't beat them in the Munster Championship go on to win the All-Ireland, and Tip in 2019 and Clare obviously last year. So that says it all, really, doesn't it? That like teams can be good enough to win the All-Ireland but still not beat Limerick in Munster. And Limerick have also won those like 5 All-Irelands in 6 years to boot. Like, it's been remarkable what we've seen, and I don't think we've seen it all yet, because that comment in from John Coleman, too many injuries last season for Limerick, it cost them. I did think this, and I was chatting to Matthew there earlier today before the game, and I was saying, if you were Aaron Gillan, or if you're Keane Lynch, or if you're Gerard Hegarty, especially their forwards, I would think this. You realise, if you're Aaron Gillane, for example, that every game you play, every single game you play, you literally have somebody like a Conor Prunty, like a Conor Cleary, like, Sean O'Donoghue if you're Aaron Gillane. You realise that every game you play, there's a world-class defender who's been prepped to mark you. And they are going, and you're wondering at that point, you're taking knock after knock after knock after knock. Like in every game Gillane plays, he probably comes out with a scratch. And you wonder how long can they keep doing that for? And maybe losing their grip on the crown might give them the energy to go and do it for longer now. And it will be really, really, really interesting to see if anyone can stop them. A2 says Limerick were literally like that assassin who watches his target before he kills them. They've been waiting for Cork for a year. Unbelievable way to put it, A2. Fiona says the big news otherwise is the return of Peter Casey. Frightening what he has been through. Absolutely. He's had some horrific injuries. But when he is on it, he is a real joy to watch as well. He's like a real flair player, Peter Casey. He's like the type that you can't seem to stop him when he gets going. And it's like you have to stop him before he takes flight, because if he gets into the groove, you're screwed. Like you genuinely are. Sean says here, Tip seem to be one of the only teams who can match Limerick's physicality throughout the course of a game. Well, that brings us on nicely to the next game. If you have any comments in, guys, because we've 25 people watching now, love to see it. If you have any comments in about the game, throw them in. But we are going to move on now to the Tipperary versus Waterford game. Actually, we won't. I'll ask you one question, Liam, before we move on. And it's from a Cork perspective. So if you're Pat Ryan and you're in the dressing room with them lads, how do you even go about preparing? Because on top of that, I know Waterford lost the Tip, but I'm sure Waterford would have been looking at the phone, getting the result in from the Limerick Cork game and absolutely jumping for joy at that, because by God, it's a bad prep for the Waterford game for Cork. So for Pat Ryan, for Cork, how do they recover in time to get the job done against Waterford and save themselves?
Well, I suppose, first of all, home advantage is massive, because they have been incredible at home this year. The only game, I believe, that the only game they didn't win in the league at home was against Limerick, ironically. And then, they've won every game there since, and a lot of them quite comfortably as well. So home advantage, again, is massive, and they will bring out a big support, because Cork generally always do, especially at home. I suppose the one thing Pat Ryan will have to remember as well is that Waterford bet them last year, and they know firsthand they cannot take Waterford for granted. And Waterford didn't even play that badly today, so Pat Ryan will certainly watch that game either tonight or tomorrow and realise, right, there's areas we can get at, but there's also areas we need to be very, very wary of, and the threat that Waterford bring. And I suppose, look, all you've got to do is literally just say, right, this was a bad day. We were beaten by the better team, and we've just got to move on as quickly as possible, because if Cork go into next weekend's game in any way, shape or form, not feeling it, or feeling like, oh, this game is already won, or, we have this in the bag or anything like that, then Waterford, Peter Creeley will have a plan, and they would love more than to knock Cork out of the All-Ireland. There's no question about that. So, yeah, all you can do really is get them back into training, and probably say to them, listen, don't listen to social media for the week. Don't look at anything online. Just focus on Waterford next Sunday. It's the biggest game of Cork's season so far. Win and you're in the Munster final. That's the thing as well. They win that game, they're in the Munster final, because they have the head-to-head rule on Tipperary. So it really is that simple for them. I think a draw probably keeps them in as well. I believe maybe on points difference over Waterford. I'm not sure what it is at the moment off the top of my head. But just simply, listen, do not take Waterford for granted. Don't let today's result against Tipperary fool you. Don't let home advantage fool you either, because at the end of the day, sometimes that can work against you. And remember, as a bit like Limerick remembering that Cork bet them last year, remember Waterford bet us last year. Let's send out another. And let's all. And I'd say Pat Ryan, he kind of said ironically, I wouldn't want another crack at Limerick if they're this good again. But I'm sure at the back of his mind, he's now thinking we need to get these lot again, and we need to prove that today was a fluke.
Absolutely, well put. I think this weekend has been a key indication of do not get caught up in the moment. Do not think that one result equals everything. Like Limerick definitely are not satisfied with the amount that they've won. They want to win more. Cork are not all of a sudden a terrible team. They had a bad day at the office, but they still are that side that beat Limerick twice last year. They still are that side that was a whisker away from winning the All-Ireland last season. And they still have incredible players and an incredible team. We have a lot of comments in here. A2 puts it well. He says, honestly feel the opposite. Waterford are going to be in for a huge backlash if Cork have anything about them at all. And Rudders here says, Cork Limerick Munster final looks like will be interesting after today. A2 says, all these teams are so strong. If one team is off it by 5%, they'll take a beating. And Brian says, it was a bad day at the office for Cork. They will bounce back next weekend. Genuinely, like, if you look at it that way, we've seen Dublin were written off by everybody. They would go away and they beat Galway in Pearse Stadium. We've seen examples of don't get caught up in the moment. A team can have a bad day at the office, but they're still capable of bouncing back the next week. And I absolutely agree with you, A2. I think if Cork if Cork are that team that can win the All-Ireland, they come back better than ever against Waterford next week. And what we've seen in the past with Cork is Cork are capable of handing out a beating as well. They handed one out to Tipperary last year. Like, they are capable of it. So, therefore, if I were Waterford, you need to be in full combat readiness as well, because Cork are capable of putting a beating on you. But Waterford stung Cork last year. They will not be afraid of them, and they have the capability to knock out Cork. Can you imagine if Cork and Clare both go out in the Munster Championship? Unbelievable stuff. Then we will move on to the next game in the Munster Championship. Tipperary 130, Waterford 121 from Semple Stadium. Tipperary win this game and put themselves very, very close to a Munster final and very, very close to making it into the next round of the championship. Tipperary, superb in this game. Well worth the win.
Yeah, absolutely well worth the win. And it wasn't looking that way after 30, 40 seconds because, like, I was barely paying attention, and then at the start of the game, next minute the ball was in the back of the net from Stephen Bennett, and I just thought, right, okay, this is interesting. After 40 seconds, Tip were 4 points down, and you were like, right, Waterford they've come out firing. That's a good sign. Can they keep this up? I suppose when the game settled, Tipperary came back into it. Waterford will be kicking themselves though. They hit a lot of very poor wides in this game. A lot of, at times, poor decision making, poor shooting. Just by the standards that you'd have for a lot of intercounty hurlers, their shooting was very, very, very poor. But they still had a lot of great performance. Stephen Bennett, they probably relied on him a bit too much, I would say, to be honest with you, to get the scores for them. Do you know, like, I think he gave Michael Breen a very tough afternoon still, I think. But when they're going for him for every single score, or even Jamie Barron as well, kind of like Cian Lynch, he was the main man trying to set up scores, trying to track back, trying to, get the ball into the full forward line. Which you look at Desi Hutchinson, I think he got 1 point today, but other than that, he was fairly anonymous. It's not been a good, really season from him, to be honest with you, by the standards that he has set over the last number of years, both for Waterford and for Ballygunner. So a very frustrating afternoon for him. For Tipperary, I mean, Andrew Ormond is really coming to his own the last couple of weeks. I mean, he got 3 points for play, but just his aerial ability, his work rate, tracking back, setting up scores. It really was a day for centre forwards, I can tell you that. It was fantastic from a load of them today. I think that performance against Clare last week, getting the 2 goals, has really, really spurred him on. And a big shout out to Darren McCarthy as well. I mean, look, he didn't score from play, scores were frees, but he gave a torrid afternoon to the Waterford full back line. Like, he was catching balls, he was winning frees, his movement was good, his work rate was the best I've seen from him in a very, very long time too. And it kind of looked like after that red card he got against Cork, he wanted to prove a point and say, listen, this is my spot. And look, he's young as well. He made the mistake. It's not one that I imagine he's going to make ever again, but he was exceptional. I felt Owen Connolly probably struggled at the start, but he came into the game really well in the second half, hit 3 fantastic long-range points. Jake Morris has really turned into that real spark that Tipperary have needed over the last while. He's big, strong. Anytime he got on the ball and struck it, you just knew it was over the bar. He strikes the ball so purely, he hits the ball so straight. Tipperary were well worked. They hit 6 points on the board at one stage in the second half. Waterford kind of shot themselves in the foot from that perspective. They replied back, hitting 3 in a row then, and then the goal from Oisin O'Donoghue on the pitch, I would say 10, 15 seconds and the ball's in the back of the net. Mentioning the Limerick bench, the Tipperary bench as well. Keneally hitting a beautiful point over the bar as well. So, yeah, 12 seconds. There you go. Yeah, incredible stuff there. So, yeah, no, for Tipperary, a much needed performance from Liam Cahill as well. I think we can put to bed that Liam Cahill syndrome as well of only performing in the league and not for. Excuse me, Ronan Maher put in a huge captain's performance as well. It was just a real all-round brilliant performance from Tipperary. It's the strongest, the fastest, and the most accurate I've seen Tipperary playing really in a long time. I was actually more impressed with this today than I was last week, because people will say Clare on the downfall and they had a poor league campaign, they had a championship campaign, but it's always difficult to rack up a really positive victory like that against the All-Ireland champions with another solid performance the following week, especially in front of your own crowd as well, and in the temperatures that they had today as well. Yeah, you got to give massive credit to Tipperary. They deserve to go through to the All-Ireland series, and they will not fear any team from the Munster Championship, but they absolutely will not fear anyone from Leinster either. Liam Cahill will certainly look at this and think, we've got a chance here of potentially going far this year.
I agree. I think if you get out of the Munster Championship, you're one of the contenders for the All-Ireland. Fully look at it that way, because you got to look at it like this. Like, how good were Waterford last season and they didn't manage to get out? Like, how good have we seen teams be in the past that have not managed to get out of the Munster Championship? Cork, I remember 2 years ago, Cork played Limerick in that final game in the Munster Championship. They lost by a point. They scored 130. They had a 76% shot accuracy, and they still lost to Limerick and exited the championship as a result of that. So I always looked at it as well, especially 2023. I remember saying with Matthew, when we were talking about could anybody topple Limerick in terms of the All-Ireland, and Matthew and I were saying that if you want to topple them, you have to get them in the Munster Championship and they have to finish fourth, because if they get out of Munster, nobody's beating them. Because it's going to be too that helter-skelter, the Munster Championship really is just, it's impossible to beat. The quality, the competitiveness, everything like that. It's just unbelievable. Ger has a really good point here. He seems interesting that 3-4 games in that Queally hasn't really used Ozzie Gleeson. I mean, he was brought back into kind of minimal fanfare, minimal hype, and he hasn't really played that big a part. It's not like the return of the king. Like, he's had a bit part role for Waterford, and he hasn't really been around at the key stages of games.
Yeah, it's a strange one, actually. This is terrible. I completely forgot that he wasn't even been used, and that kind of just shows you that he's nearly been sort of forgotten by a lot of people, that he hasn't been playing games. And you do wonder now, would he have made a difference today? Could he have been a bit of an extra spark, whether that been in the back or in the forward lines? Because, I mean, Kenny at cornerback was getting fleeced. Cornerback Ty Burka wasn't as good as he has been over the last number of weeks, even since his return from injury, where they were relying too much on Stephen Bennett and possibly at the start as well, Mikey Kiley in the forward line to do the damage. Could he have done different? Look, it's hard to know, because only Queally knows what he's doing in training or what he's doing off the pitch, how he's minding himself. Like, these players, they're big names, of course, but at the end of the day, if they're not doing it in training, if they're not doing it outside of training, if they're not, minding themselves or whatever.
But then why ask him back? That's the thing that I don't understand, because he was gone. Queally brings him back in and then doesn't use him. It's like, but it's not like, you see, when Dublin brought back Diarmuid Connolly, for example, in 2019, like, Jim Gavin brought him back, and it was very clear what he was. He was an impact sub for the last 20 minutes of the game. That's what he was used as throughout the entire year. But with Gleeson, it's like sometimes he's been brought in early, sometimes he's been brought off early, and he doesn't seem to have a defined role. And I think for a player with the talent that he has, and on top of that, he is just a match winner. He's a player that could walk into the Waterford team, in my opinion, if he's at 100%. I don't fully understand. Pádraig Lennon says Galway to beat the Dubs in Parnell Park. I'll disagree with you on that one, Pádraig. I think that we'll actually have their number. They have never beaten Dublin in the round robin. So I don't think that's going to change this year. I could be proven wrong, but hopefully not. Fiona says Limerick are the only team with a plus points difference in the round robin, plus 22. Unbelievable stuff. If Tip get to the final, they'll be at home. Waterford will need no pep talk. Everyone will be rooting for them, says Fiona. Scooby says Tip would hammer Galway. Interesting. Bit of a hot take from Scooby there, but I do shade Tip to win that game, to be honest, right now. But yeah, so as that stands now in the Munster Championship, unbelievable that we have to mention this too before we move on. First of all, I want to say massive congratulations to Tipperary on their performance. Superb stuff. There's comments in about how Tip are a coming side. And let's be honest, I don't think it's a question of if Tipperary will win an All-Ireland in the next however many years. It's when. What year are they going to make that jump? What year are those lads going to break through? Because the Andrew Ormans, the Darren McCarthy's, that generation that are coming, there's too many good players for Tipperary not to have a world-class team very, very soon. So it's just when can they make that jump? So I do think this year, in terms of winning an All-Ireland, is too early for them, but they have been showing serious signs of improvement and significant improvement. And the draw with Limerick was a real indicator of that. But yeah, we are finished talking about Munster, the games that took place today, but we have to talk about one connotation, Liam, which unbelievably, the All-Ireland Hurling champions are officially out of the championship. Clare are no more. They will not defend their All-Ireland title in 2025. You would have been a brave man to say that at the start of the year.
And I said it at the predictions. I said Clare would go out. I don't have many, so I'm taking this one. Thank you. I don't have many wins. I also said Galway would go out, and probably rightfully got a few bad comments or people probably saying, what's this guy on about? But yeah, I just wasn't convinced by Clare. I mean, look, everyone says you can't judge, say, championships on the league, but if you're All-Ireland champions and you're getting relegated, and some of the performances that they put into the league were very, very pitiful. I felt from the game against Wexford at home when Tony Kelly was brought back, and obviously Lee Jim was brought back for Wexford, which was a massive plus for them. I just said, are they going to be as good this year as they were over the last number of years? And you looked at them, but they should have lost to Cork, realistically. By halftime, they were best. They got a great comeback against them, but they were well off the pace that game. Well off the pace against Waterford. Like, I was in Nolan Park, so I didn't see last Saturday, so I didn't see the full Clare and Tip game, but I saw the scoreline after 20 minutes, and I was just amazed. I was like, how do Tip have 4 goals after 20, 25 minutes? This is insane, to be honest with you. And yeah, no, they've gone out, and rightfully so, in my opinion. They've not been good enough this year. I do worry what could happen to them in the Gaelic grounds in a couple of weeks' time. Now, look, they'll always raise their game for Limerick, but like, albeit now it's a dead rubber. Realistically, Limerick are in the Leinster.
Limerick are in the Limerick final.
All the Limerick final at this point. It's been a long day, but they're in the Munster final, and Clare are out, so it is a bit of a dead rubber now. But I suppose they'll want to try and sign off in the right way. They didn't defend their title well, like was said there in 2014, and they've not defended it well this year. And yeah, no, whether next weekend to be Brian Lohan's last game in Clare as Clare manager, it'd be interesting to see. Whether it could be the last game for some players, it could be Shane O'Donnell's last game for Clare. You never know, because he's kind of said that this might be his last year before he goes off to try to be an astronaut, or what I think that's what he's looking to do. So yeah, no, it'll be It's not a wrongful position at all. It's a right position that Clare are gone, and yeah, new All-Ireland champions this year.
Yeah, no, you're right. There was something a bit off about them all year. I mean, I go back to the Cork-Clare league game where Cork scored 6 goals past them, and I was just thinking, right, okay, maybe it can be a bad day at the office, but like, that was humiliating. And if you look back through the history books, teams that break ducks, break famines for winning All Irelands, they don't tend to go back to back. Like, Dublin won it in 2011, didn't win it in 2012. Limerick themselves won it in 2018, didn't win it in 2019. Donegal won it in 2012 in the football, didn't win it in 2013. Like, there's so many examples of when a team breaks a duck and finally gets to the Holy Grail, it's difficult to get yourself to climb that mountain again the following year. So yeah, it's really, really interesting to see how they're going to handle it. Are they going to come back? Is this going to be the call now for some key players to depart? Are we going to see John Conlon next year? Are we going to see Shane O'Donnell next year? Are we going to see Brian Lohan as manager next year? It's going to be interesting to see how it goes. But Fia Innes probably has the best way to sum up this weekend. Favourites smashed, champions out with a game to play. That's how crazy the Munster Championship has been. And yeah, it's just been absolutely crazy. And I personally think it's not the last that we've seen of them, but it proves that the Munster Championship doesn't give a damn what you've done. You have to get the points on the board, and or else you'll be out. Rudders backs up what I'm saying, in my opinion. He says Armagh won it last year, won't be winning it this year. There's a hot take for you. You might have to run away, Rudders. All the Armagh fans will come for you now. But on top of that, we have more comments in. Rudders also says Clare should bring back Davy Fitz. Interesting. I mean, Davy Fitz replacing Brian Lohan. They're not exactly sending each other Christmas cards. I think that would be an interesting handoff of the baton. Fiona says the most successful team in the round robin since it started was Clare. Limerick never topped the round robin. Very, very interesting stat. Sean O'Reilly says great comeback from Dublin. The bench really made an impact with the likes of Fergal Whiteley and Ronan Hayes. Positive signs going forward. Yes, we are going to come to that game next, because the Munster Championship chat on this particular episode is done. But if you want to ask any questions about it or throw in your personal highlights, drop them in the comments. I'll pop them up on screen as we move through. But we are going to move over to the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship. And Liam, this is a bizarre scoreline. Kilkenny 5-19, Dublin 3-21 in Nolan Park. Look, the reality is, at the start of this game, when Kilkenny rattled in 4 goals quite quickly, I thought we were in for a horrible day. As the comment said there, we did stage a very, very good comeback. Ronan Hayes, Sean Curry, all to the fore. Ultimately, we fall short, but there are positives to take from a Dublin perspective here.
Yeah, and it just shows what kind of a crazy day it was when you have Tip Waterford at 2, Kilkenny, Dublin at 3. I had Laois Kildare on the phone as well, which incredibly I only found out once you rang me earlier that you were doing the commentary. But I was like, geez, I recognise that voice, but I never put 2 and 2 together. But you've those games on, and then you've Limerick and Cork, so trying to keep up with all of them was near impossible. But yeah, like you said, when Kilkenny rattled in the 4 goals before half time, because Dublin started well, it was 5 points each at one stage. The 4 goals that were conceded were very, very poor. They were defended extremely poorly. Kilkenny scored them with very minimal fuss, to be honest with you. And I think Neil O'Callaghan would be fairly disappointed from that aspect as well, because like it was 4 goals against Wexford, it was 2 goals against Offaly and 5 against Kilkenny, which he'll probably look at now and think we need to strengthen and not letting goals so easily, kind of, going forward if they are to compete for winning a Leinster title, or even if they were to get back to an All-Ireland quarter-final or semi-final, they're going to have to really improve on that aspect. But like you said, the comeback in the second half, I mean, it was driven by the likes of Sean Curry and Cian O'Sullivan. Those two were absolutely exceptional. Huge fan of Sean Curry. When we played Nafina in the Leinster Club final, I was more worried about him than Donald Burke, to be honest with you, just because I thought his speed, his quick turn, and his accuracy in front of goal is fantastic. He's such a quick player too, and he's never ever shy of getting a goal either. He took his 2 goals extremely well, especially the 21-yard free, which took me by surprise. If you're beating Owen Murphy as well as 3 or 4 extra Kilkenny defenders from 21 yards out, then you're doing fierce well. So yeah, no, some really strong performances from those two. Huge save pulled off by Owen Murphy as well from Hayes as well, which probably one of the saves of the season as well, really, and kept Dublin away from edging the gap closer to Kilkenny as well. It was a real pivotal moment in the game. And yeah, look, Dublin, they'll be disappointed with how the first half ended, but they will take massive, massive praise for the fact that they scored 3 goals in the second half, 3 very good goals as well. And they worked tirelessly. The momentum shifted really, really nicely for them. Fergal Whiteley made a huge impact off the bench. AJ Murphy made a huge impact, scored 2. Particularly his second point off his left-hand side was a thing of beauty as well, from out towards the sideline on the 40-yard line. So, yeah, no, terrific from some Dublin players there. From a Kilkenny perspective, look, it's another win, which is the crucial thing for them. They're back in the Leinster final. Jordan Malloy had a big performance in midfield. Billy Ryan scored 2-3. Cracker of a 5th goal as well, which was really well worked. Look, TJ Reid did his thing as usual. Few kind of uncharacteristic wides at times as well from Kilkenny, which I'm sure they'd be probably frustrated. Well, Derek Ling will certainly be frustrated with this evening. But look, overall, they'll be happy just to get out of there with the win. Obviously, won't be happy with conceding 3 goals, but at the end of the day, they've got 4 wins out of 4. They did their damage in the first half. It was just too much for Dublin to try and catch up on. And yeah, they'll march forward to a Leinster final now, but they'll know full well that I think this is a different kind of Dublin team to what we've seen over the last number of years, because I feel like a Dublin team from maybe even a couple of years ago might have faltered, and like you said, it could have been a really, really bad day for them.
Yeah,
But
like last year.
Yeah, exactly. But Neil O'Callaghan just seems to have his group really, really tuned in and saying, listen, we're not down and out yet. The game's over when the whistle goes for the final time. And yeah, they'll take huge positives going into that Galway game next weekend, especially being back in Parnell Park too.
Oh, for sure. Like Parnell Park is a fortress for Dublin, and every team that goes there finds it really, really hard to pull out the result. I mean, Kilkenny were taken to the wire last year by Dublin and in Parnell Park. Sean here says Dublin need Owen O'Donnell back. They were really exposed in the air. Brian also kind of echoes that, saying the goals Dublin conceded were very basic errors. A2 puts it in a bit of a horrible way. He says death taxes and Kilkenny beating Dublin in hurling. And he says, can we play Kilkenny in football 1 year to make it fair? So sick of losing to them every year. The reality is we've probably lost to Kilkenny every single way that you can lose to them. We've been hammered from minute 1 to minute 70. We've lost to them at the death. I remember the one that hurt the most, and I know that my fellow Dublin OGs will know this. The one that hurt the most was Liam Blanchfield batting a goal in 2018. Yeah, I remember that. I'm pretty sure I boxed a hole in the wall. Like when I got home, I was like, because I really thought we were gonna beat them, and I thought I was gonna bear witness to it. It didn't happen. We didn't get over the line. It is what it is, and we are now in 2025, and we still haven't beaten them since 2013. So that's the glass ceiling for Dublin, is to get over the line and beat Kilkenny. I still think we've a very good chance of playing them in a Leinster final. I really think that. I think I'd be confident that we can beat Galway in Parnell Park, and then we get a second crack at them. Oh, Jesus. Why did you remind me of that? 2018 was an absolute sickness. So they do remember, my fellow OGs remember it. That was the most heartbreaking one. But yeah, I think in this game, look, there's positives to take. And I think the biggest thing that I can take positively from this current Dublin team is, I think, and feel free to disagree with me if you do, but I think this Dublin team feels a bit more built for the long term than previous Dublin teams have been. I think over the last 2 years, we've kind of just gone for whatever we have, which is the best team that we have there and then on the day, squeeze whatever we can out. And the years have tended to go a very similar pattern where we either lose a Leinster final or finish third and then lose to whoever comes out of the Munster Championship and meets us in the quarterfinal. If you do what you always do, you get what you always got. So I think with O'Callaghan, we're realizing that, like, okay, we need to build a team now for 3 or 4 years down the line when maybe we can compete. And if you look at, examples in the past where we have seen how Cork took a step back to take 2 steps forward, we have seen examples. And I think there is reason to be hopeful. But then again, we saw with Matty Kenny. Matty Kenny came in; he'd won 2 All-Irelands with Coola. And did we get that much better? No, not really. Like we kind of just stayed the same. So yeah, I'm hopeful that we can build something. I saw enough in that Kilkenny defeat to tell me that under the right circumstances on the right day, we can really put it up to them and maybe beat them. I'm not sure if I'd say that it's this year. Probably still would shade it to Kilkenny in a Leinster final, but I think we can beat them. I think we've seen, and that sounds crazy when you're talking about, oh, did you not see the Leinster final last year? We're more resilient this year. Plus, we've all seen what a year can do. Just ask the Dublin football team. We've all seen what a year can do. Meath got annihilated by Dublin last year, came back, and they'd learned their lessons and they put them into practice. I really think under the right circumstances, we can beat them. I don't think they're quite as good as their Leinster record over the last 6 years would make them out to be. I do think that they're beatable. And I think on the right day, under the right circumstances in a Leinster final, I think we could do it. Going to touch on the other games which took place in the Leinster Championship. I'll let you take the wheel for this one. Wexford 2-17, Offaly 1-17 at Wexford Park. You had a great start. Brian Duignan hitting the back of the net early. Wexford responded with a goal of their own from Kevin Foley. Then it was game on from that point, and Wexford ultimately shaded.
Can we move on? This
up to you, man. You're the guest.
I genuinely preferred the defeat to Kilkenny last weekend because the game was over at halftime. This one just hurt just because it was the last minute. Yeah, at the start of the season, we kind of pinpointed the games that Offaly could target in the Leinster Championship, and we pinpointed Dublin in Parnell Park and Wexford in Chadwick's Wexford Park. And ironically, those two games have turned out to be two games that we've essentially thrown away, to be honest with you. This one just hurt because we performed extremely, extremely well. We defended expertly yesterday. Sorry, like Wexford by halftime had 1-6 and 1-1 came from play, which for a Wexford with the players that they do have in their forward line is just simply not good enough from their perspective. They were hitting a lot of poor wides as well. Lee Chin was hitting a lot of wides from frees as well. Ben Keneally was doing a stellar job on him. Carl King was at cornerback. He was doing a stellar job on Byrne. He had to go off at halftime due to injury, and that was a massive, massive blow for us, to be honest with you. And yeah, like we were performing really well. Dan Ravenhill, in my opinion, was having the best game he's had in a long time for Offaly. Brian Dignan got his goal and was doing well. We were fighting hard for every ball. Killian Sampson was having a great game in midfield. Colin Spain was doing well. I thought Kieran Burke was strong. Donald Shirley was strong. Ross Ravenhill, again, was probably having the best game he'd had in a long time in an Offaly jersey. He was fighting for every ball. He was strong under the tackle. And Wexford were fairly anonymous. Kevin Foley was probably their strongest forward, along with maybe Jack O'Connor, who was just, that big presence that you do need in every single team. But Chin and Roy O'Connor didn't score from play until the 60th minute, 63rd minute, something like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, like you were thinking, if you keep them quiet, you have a great chance, and we did exactly that. And yeah, look, we just some daft decisions at times. There was great fight from our lads. There was great fight from Wexford as well. It was a real heated battle, which sometimes you love to watch those games probably more than a free-flowing game, because there's passion there, there's intensity, there was no love, I can tell you that. There was absolutely no love between the players, no love between managements. There was heated arguments everywhere, and I love watching it. It just made me think of how proud I am of those lads that consider where we were a couple of years ago. The fact now that we're getting Wexford essentially rattled, come at me, what Wexford fans? The fact we're getting them rattled was a good sign. A few substitutions that probably were made that didn't go to plan. I think taking off Dan Ravenhill at the moment we did was not the right decision either. I think we should have kept him on as well. I thought he was playing extremely well, was working tirelessly as well. And yeah, Lee Chin's goal, it was a cracker of a goal. I'm not going to take that away from him. Probably a lucky break as well. You could tell him salty, can't you? But yeah, no, look, Wexford, to their credit, they came back. They fought hard to get the job done. Keane Byrne had a much better second half than he did first half. He was putting, especially his second point from 40 yards out, it was put over exceptionally well. And yeah, they saw the game out, to their credit, and we could have I suppose in a way we can feel hard done by and say that we deserve something from the game. Dan Burke as well, I meant to mention as well, was exceptional. He's probably been Offaly's best player or certainly most consistent player this year, and for a guy he's not the biggest, but just his work rate, his speed, his intelligence, everything he does was fantastic. Sam Burke came and did a great job as well, to his credit as well. So yeah, no, it's a disappointing defeat. We'd have had to beat Antrim or get a draw against them next weekend either way, regardless of yesterday's result. And given today's result, Wexford are out of the championship as well. So next weekend's game against Kilkenny, again, much like Limerick, Clare, is a dead rubber. But yeah, massive win for Wexford. They could have done without losing a home game as well. And considering their last two performances as well against the Galway and Dublin, they'd have been best pleased to just get out of here with a victory. But certainly not convincing by any standard anyway.
Yeah, no, I think, look, the reality is Offaly have closed the gap dramatically. And Fiona says here, echoes of the 1990s going on in Offaly. And we all know how that culminated. It culminated with an All-Ireland win in 94, an All-Ireland win in 98. And those are still some of the most celebrated All-Ireland wins around, especially for the dramatics behind both years. And the heroic story of Michael Bond, obviously his Laker Gale, I watched it recently. Like, that was unbelievable stuff on TG Car. And like, the reality is, when you put it this way, tell me if I'm wrong, were you guys in the Christie Ring in 2019?
We were relegated from the Joe McDonagh in 2019.
And that was the same year Wexford won Leinster and made it to the All-Ireland semi-final, and were literally an inch away from reaching the All-Ireland final that year. So how the gap has closed in that 6 years is quite extraordinary. And I really believe that you fast forward 5 years, looking at what is coming in Offaly, looking at what is there in Wexford in the pipeline, Offaly will surpass Wexford at this rate, for sure. Now, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. But yeah, there's an issue that I hope that Offaly get good enough to really challenge Kilkenny. That's the main thing. And I really believe that it will happen. Brian says, at least Arsenal won, Liam.
The only
and he asks you, what are your expectations for the Offaly hurlers?
Well, it's funny. Like you said, hurling's a funny game. We could easily be sitting here now on 4 points with a game against Antrim next weekend, with the possibility of getting a third place spot. And Anthony Daly's prediction on the Sunday game could have looked like an absolute genius move, you know. Yeah. But just closing games out, closing the game out against Dublin, you know, we didn't. It's as simple as that. Dublin had too much firepower coming off the bench as well. Ronan Hayes, just at his goal, but just his performance in general, the midfield battle was kind of won by Dublin. Not kind of, it was won by Dublin that day. And just yesterday, just seeing the games out, really, we've had a lot of injuries this year as well. Like, I mean, everyone knows about Adam Screeney and his injury. Keelan Kiley's not there at the moment. Turgainen, for me, is the biggest injury of all, to be honest with you. He's a player that is going to have a long future with the Offaly hurlers, with the Kilcormac hurlers as well. He's a terrific player. Evan Kelly was out for a while. O'Cal missed the start of the year. Ben Keneally missed a good chunk of the league as well. Like, we've had our fair share of injury records this year. So the fact that we're sitting here now and we're saying that, you know, we're disappointed to have lost to both Wexford and Dublin away from home as well by just 3 points, it shows that. And listen, against Galway as well, we started well and then we kind of just collapsed with goals. Kilkenny really just was men against boys, really. It was just a different class altogether, really. But
that happens though when you come up. Like, that happens when you get a couple of games where the level is kind of shown that you have to get to. And I really believe, really believe that give it a couple of years, you'll be mixing it to get out of the province. Sean says Leinster is dry right now, but I see promise for the future. Dublin are getting better with promising youth teams. Offaly will also be coming in the next 2 years, and never rule out Wexford or Galway. Yeah, look, the reality is I do make Offaly huge favourites for that game against Antrim, but Antrim have kind of made a habit of being sneaky with it. It's almost like they're like, yeah, we know what game we're focusing on here, lads. Like, they saw Westmeath beat Wexford and then Antrim beat them. And we've had results like that where Antrim have done enough to keep themselves up. I do think that this will end, though. And the reality is, when you see Antrim putting in performances like this, 6-27 to Galway, 1-14 to Antrim, and Davy Fitz at the end was moaning about a red card. I was like, 6-27, Davy, like 6-27. I mean, once it goes beyond 5 goals, I don't even care if like a bolt of lightning hit your goalkeeper every time someone took a shot. Like, so much has gone wrong. To somehow still point the finger at the ref is almost impressive.
Look, I'll agree in one sense. The red card was very, very harsh. I don't think it was a red card. And to be honest with you, I think a huge meal was made out of nothing. But at the same time, like you said, never mind the 6 goals. It was 2-13 to, was it 6 or 8 points when that happened. Like, the game,
the horses bolted, like.
Exactly. Galway were going into the second half with the wind as well. Like, the game was essentially over. They'd call Mannion on the bench to bring off. You know, like, it was just like, look, Davy, he's mentioned already, he's finding the trips up there hard. And really, look, they've not performed this year in the league or the championship. Like, you look at some of the results they've had this year, they've conceded 325 at home to Dublin. They put up a decent performance in the first half against Kilkenny, but ultimately lost by 18 points. Performance there yesterday. Performed relatively okay down in Wexford Park, but again, 11-point defeat. They took a hammering at home to Waterford in the league, a hammering away to Offaly, a hammering away to Dublin. It's been a very, very tough season. And yes, they have their injury problems at the moment. McDonagh wasn't playing yesterday either. He'll be back this weekend, obviously. But Galway could have won that game by much, much more. You know, Antrim, like Antrim at the start were doing well, but they just weren't taking their chances. They were hitting way too many wides, especially with the wind at their disposal as well. And Galway were just getting their scores way, way easier. And once Concannon and Burns got those goals before halftime, you knew it was game over. And Conor Cooney got 11 points. He was taken over from Mannion from free taking duty today, and he did it relatively well, to be fair to him. But Micheál Donoghue will know that this was a nothing game, really, that they can't read too much into this, and they have bigger fish to fry, which is next weekend. They're through, which is good. They are, from their perspective, they're through regardless what happens next weekend. But that Dublin game next weekend is the one that he's going to be having his eye on, and that's going to be a really tasty game. I'm really looking forward to that. And not just because you're here, but I will say Dublin will win. Dublin will win. I'm still not fully convinced by Galway. They've improved. They have kind of changed my perspective a small bit in the championship with some of their performances. And listen, when you've got players like Colin Mannion in your team, you really have a chance. But I still think Dublin have a better attack than Galway, dare I say it. Galway might have a more stern defence at the moment, but like you said, in Parnell Park, Galway don't travel well up to Dublin when they have to play them. And yeah, I think it'll be a Dublin-Kilkenny Leinster final, and I think Galway will be heading for an All-Ireland qualifier against the winners of the Joe McDonagh.
I certainly hope that you are correct, because there's one ace in the pack that we haven't really mentioned when it comes to the Dublin-Galway game this year is Micheál Donoghue. He was Dublin manager last year. He knows that team inside out, and I think he'd have a good idea what his game plan is going to be coming into this game, because on top of that, the why of this game is quite important. This is where Micheál Donoghue's first Galway term came to an end. They lost in Parnell Park in the 2019 championship, got knocked out, and that's where Micheál Donoghue's first reign with Galway ended. So to return there in a bid to make the Leinster final, I mean, it kind of sells itself. It's basically a Leinster semi-final, that game, and given that it's in Parnell Park, I will shade it to Dublin, but it will be tight. And I would love another crack at Kilkenny in a Leinster final. A2 says, and Davey with complete head loss after the game. He just can't help himself. Sean says, I think it's fair. It's not working for Davey up north. And A2 says, to be fair, he did say that he just likes having a moan. And I really, really do believe Jack is talking about Ger earlier. He says, Garrod let Limerick win in All-Ireland this year before saying they're better than that Kilkenny great team. Kilkenny have come back and won 3 after great years. Yeah, look, the reality is both teams, you can make the debate. Maybe we'll make a video on it one day debating which one is better. But I think Limerick could probably hit a higher peak, but I think maybe Kilkenny have more longevity right now. When it's all said and done, I think it'll be interesting to see who is the better of the two. Yeah, unbelievable stuff. If I were Antrim, I would be looking to get Davey to pass on everything that he knows to Neil McManus, and then maybe see if Neil McManus can have a crack, because Neil McManus is a superb hurling legend up there in Antrim, superb player on his day, absolute gentleman as well. And I really do think he as well, like, he's hurling royalty up there in Antrim, like he kind of good friends with Terence McNaughton and everything like that. And Terence managed the Ireland team against Scotland in the hurling versus Shinty. Like, I think next time if I were Antrim, you have your hurling legends, maybe let them have a crack at the whip and not, go with someone who's living miles away and God knows what you're paying on expenses to get Davey up and down. A2 says, combined Limerick Kilkenny 15 could be spicy. You know what? That could be a video. A2. That could be a video. Joe in if you would like me to do that video.
You get much hate.
We're going to move. What?
You get so much hate in that video. But
my God, you get so much hate. Do you want to rattle through it? Top of your head. Just rattle through it. Don't think about it. Okay, Quaid and let's say, okay, what was that Kilkenny team at their best? So 2008 final against Waterford, is that fair?
Yeah, I'd say
that was them at their best. Limerick, will we say today, just for argument's sake? Okay, so Quaid or PJ Ryan?
I'll go with Quaid.
Okay, Sean Finn or Michael Cavan?
Sean Finn.
We're going by numbers, by the way, here. I'm going Sean Finn and Quaid so far, by the way.
Sean Finn, yeah.
Okay, I'm going JJ Delaney fullback.
Yeah, JJ, 100%.
Jackie Tyrrell or Barry Nash?
Jackie Tyrrell.
Agreed. Oh, the halfback line. I just Tommy Walsh or Dermot Burns. Jesus Christ.
Tommy Walsh.
Okay. I actually am going to disagree. Just for Burns' long freeze, I think, and his scoring threat. I think Walsh is an icon. Don't get me wrong, Walsh, but Burns actually is a scoring threat. I'd be tempted to do this. Could you do Dermot Burns, Kyle Hayes, and Tommy Walsh?
You probably could. You could.
I'm massively underestimating, I know, how effective Declan Hannon is and how effective Brian Hogan was.
It might have to include there, but
you can't not include the captain.
Yeah.
But then who drops out? I have to go, honestly, Burns, Hannon, Hayes then. I genuinely...
I have to have Tommy Walsh in there, I'll be honest. I just think for a man...
Does Burns or Hayes or Hannon drop out? Oh, you opened up a can of worms here, A2. You opened it up. I'm not going to be able to sleep at night.
I'm going to go with Burns. I just think Declan Hannon is arguably probably the best captain of all time, considering what he's won as captain. And you, after seeing, say, what Kyle Hayes did there today, I think you got to keep Hayes in there. I would probably push Hayes out to wing back, probably.
Okay. I'm going Mick Fennelly and Will O'Donoghue midfield.
Mick Fennelly, yep, 100%. Will O'Donoghue.
Will O'Donoghue alongside him?
Yeah, I'd agree.
I think. And then half forwards, I'm going Hegarty, Lynch, and Shefflin.
Hegarty, Lynch, Shefflin. Yeah, checks out.
And then full forward line, Gillan, Eddie Brennan, and DJ Carey maybe. But DJ was gone.
I think DJ might, yeah.
DJ was gone. DJ left, I think, in, was it 06?
I would go Gillan.
You can make a case for Peter Casey or Seamus Flanagan there.
I would go Gillan, Eddie Brennan, and Owen Larkin.
Owen Larkin was very underrated. Richie Power was another one who was flair. Like Richie Power was so good.
Richie Power was an excellent forward.
You could make a case for throwing Shefflin in the full forward line as well and putting Tom Morrissey at left half. Like there's a lot you could do.
You could, but I think Shefflin at half.
Richie Hogan.
Oh Jesus!
Nah, Richie Hogan's in. Top of the left for me.
Oh, TJ in too, sure. Why not?
TJ, yeah, grand. Yeah, right. TJ's in. And we won't tell you who's out. We'll move on because we will be here all day. It's already an hour and 5 minutes. We will speed it up because we still have, I don't know, another sport to get through. We're going to talk about the Joe McDonagh Cup first, the round 4. And I was, as Liam pointed out earlier in the show, I was commentating on the clash between Kildare and Laois in the Joe McDonagh Cup, and it saw a superb win for Kildare. They beat Laois away in O'Moore Park by 4 goals and 20 points to Laois's 118. Down also had a superb win over Kerry, 226 to 219, while Carlow scored 723 against Westmeath's 422. God bless the poor man who had to keep the scoreboard operating that day. That must be a score every 30 seconds. But the situation now is this: Carlow, Kildare and Laois are all on 6 points heading into the final round.
Yeah, and Kildare have the head-to-head rule against the two of them as well, because they've beaten the two of them as well, which for Kildare hurling is absolutely sensational. And actually, my bigger question is, how did they lose to Kerry on the opening day, to be honest with you, considering the last two results that they've just had now. But yeah, an incredible result for Kildare hurling. They've been building over the last number of years. Naas GAA are, they're one of the contenders for the Leinster club title every single year. They've been dominating Kildare for years, and you can see the work that's been going in behind the scenes over the last number of years coming to fruition now. Didn't see much of the first half, kind of caught up with it in the second half, and I'm glad I did, because Kildare in the second half were absolutely sensational. David Qualter was fantastic. Sheridan is a very, very underrated player. I really enjoy watching him play. You have the Borins there as well. Like, they have a lot of really, really classy players. Jerry Keegan scored 3 points. James Burke scored 3 points. Colin McCabe scored 1-2. And yeah, like I was very disappointed with Laois, I'll be honest with you. They got their goal from a 21, from a free essentially, and just their decision making at times was extremely poor, and it looked like they were nearly half asleep at times. Kildare, I think it was the third goal that they got, that they just walked through them, to be honest with you. Like, Laois just looked all over the place, to be honest with you. And it's amazing, like, Laois could easily have beaten us last year in the Joe McDonagh final, and they could have been the ones playing Wexford yesterday. And now they're on the brink of potentially not making a Joe McDonagh final again this year, which would be detrimental to them, especially when you consider they're going to be playing Division 2A hurling next year as well. Like, they need all the momentum that they can get. And yeah, no, this is a very, especially at home as well. And it's not even like they lost it by even like 6 points like Carlow did. They got battered here. You know, they got absolutely destroyed. And like, look, you were there, so you'd have a bit of a better perspective than I would. But it just seemed to me that Kildare were well deserving of their victory. And yeah, Laois just looked all over the shop.
Kildare were superb, and like in this game, the reality was in the first half, Kildare's intensity was superb. They were blocking up a lot of what Laois had done well. Like, James Duggan came into this game having scored 7 goals and 4 points already in the last 3 games, and Rian Boren just shut him down in the first half. He literally was unbelievable. Like, he's the Kildare captain. He's an amazing player. And he came out in the second half, scored an amazing point after fetching it. He's as good as you get. Like, genuinely, if there was a Leinster team, Rian Boren, you have to consider him as a starter. He's unbelievable. Keane Boren as well, out at wing back was superb. And then in the forwards, Jack Sheridan, James Burke, the big players stood up for Kildare, and David Qualter as well on the freeze and scored a brilliant goal early in the second half. Like, all the big players stood up for Kildare. And look, the reality is, I don't know what happened on the first day with Kerry, but they've backed that up by beating Westmeath, beating Carlow away from home, and beating Laois away from home. Like, there's no fluke about this now. They are as good as you will get in the John McDonagh Cup. And going into the final day, I do fancy them to beat down and to make sure that their fate is in their own hands. And now Laois and Carlow, one of them won't even make the John McDonagh final, which is absurd to think about. And you would never have predicted that at the start of the year, but that is the world in which we live. On top of this, we are now going to move through the gears, move through the competitions, and the Christy Ring Cup round 5. So what happened this week in the Christy Ring Cup? First of all, we had Derry beat Wicklow by 230 to 113. London beat Tyrone by 420 to 113. And Donegal beat Meath by 28 points to 314. So what happens then is this. Derry will play London in the Christy Ring Cup final for 2025. And then moving to the Nicky Rackard Cup, what happened was Roscommon beat Louth 417 to 20 points. Armagh beat Sligo by 23 points to 313. And Mayo and Fermanagh drew 122 to 316. So what this means is Mayo will play Roscommon in the final of the Nicky Rackard Cup. And then in the Laurie Marr Cup, what happened this week was Monaghan and Longford drew 220 each. Cavan, who are already in the final, lost to Leitrim by 110 to 215. And Lancashire and Warwickshire, it finished 413 to Warwickshire, 26 points to Lancashire. So what that means is Cavan will play Monaghan in the final. Liam, what would your thoughts be on these finals? You've got Derry London in the Christy Ring, Mayo Roscommon in the Nicky Rackard, and Cavan Monaghan in the final. In the Laurie Marr side.
Yeah, I suppose first of all, shout out to one of my close friends, Daniel Coughlin, who's talking with Fermanagh at the moment. So best of luck to him for the rest of the season as well. Yeah, Christy Ring, incredible that London and Derry's in the final. I genuinely thought Wicklow were gonna get there, considering the start they had. But massive credit to London, the work that's gone in behind the scenes there. I mean, especially from the opening day when they bet Meath, you were like, right, okay, can they continue this on now, or is this just maybe a bit of a fluke result? It's derailed Meath season, and it's got London to a position which I'd say they can't believe they're in, to be honest with you. And like, listen, they were playing against an already relegated Tyrone, so you're probably expecting them to get the victory. But at the same time, you have to go out there and do it, and they did it in real good fashion as well. For Derry, solid win at home to Wicklow as well. And yeah, for one of these teams to be going up to the Joe McDonagh next year, and when you look at the potential teams that they could be playing in Championship next year, I mean, you could be playing Laois or Carlow, you could be playing Westmeath, albeit if they don't go down, or Kerry, and then one of Antrim or Offaly. Like, that's terrific for one of them as well. And yeah, it's brilliant for Hurling to see them. Massive shout out to Donegal as well. A win against Kerry in the league and a win against Meath as well. And to score 28 points is absolutely terrific. And it's brilliant to see counties like that coming up with big wins like that. You know, you need more hurling counties. You need more teams producing wins. I know Michael Verney has done a good few nice pieces in the Independent with hurling people from Donegal, and they've been very, very good reads as well. And yeah, no, delighted to see them doing well. Kind of expected Mayo to be in the final at the start of the year, and I really they should have no problem for Roscommon, in my opinion, in the decider, to be honest with you. And yeah, predicted Cavan to win the Laurie Maher Cup, and I kind of thought Monaghan would probably be their closest contenders. And yeah, I don't think Cavan will have any issue winning the Laurie Maher Cup, to be honest with you. I think the way it's kind of gone is kind of how I expected, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I would be on the same wavelength with you for them. The last one from the small ball then is the Leinster Senior Camogie Championship final, which went ahead with both teams wearing the skirts. Now, they trained in the shorts. They requested that no photos be taken in the match if they were wearing the skirts. They were forced to wear the skirts. The only images from this game are of them doing their warm-up. But Kilkenny won on the day by 20 points to a goal and 6, relatively straightforward. We aren't going to talk too much about the skirts debate here. We are going to talk about it when they make their decision at Congress on the 22nd of May, which is coming up very, very soon. If they don't change it, I won't be very nice. I think I'll be very, very disappointed in them. But hopefully the movement has gathered enough momentum to push over the line. The players should be given a choice to wear shorts or skirts, depending on which they prefer. But Kilkenny in this game got the job done.
Yeah, and it's good that they got the excuse me. It's good that they got the game done. You know, because at the end of the day, the women playing in these matches they just want to play. They don't want to be talking about the skirts issue.
They should just be allowed to wear it. That's the real thing. They should just be allowed to wear the shorts. But
you're
right.
At this stage, the referee should have just been saying, "Listen, wear the shorts. I'm not going to tell you to change.
Yeah.
Wear skirts, wear them. If you want to wear shorts, wear them. Let's get this game played and, you know, avoid any sort of drama or anything like that as well. And just get, like, we should be sitting here mostly just talking about a brilliant performance from Kilkenny and a brilliant performance from the likes of Eva Prendergast. She got 3 points. Kenny Nolan and Fitzgerald in the corner forwards as well did very, very well. Lauren Murphy scoring 8 points as well. And Kilkenny were fully worth their victory as well. They closed out the game extremely, extremely well. Wexford were kind of never really close enough to really push any sort of comeback, despite the best efforts of Joanne Dillon. You know, she scored 1-3. She had a relatively good game. She was the main scoring threat. But yeah, unfortunately, this is a game where people will be more, again, just talking about the whole skirts issue, which nobody wants. You know, we should be talking about the talents of these players. Like Ursula Jacob doesn't want to be speaking about the skirts issue on the Saturday game, or, you know, Aoife Sheehan, who's a lecturer in journalism in UL, doesn't want to be going on RT speaking about it either, or Anna Geary doesn't want to be speaking about it. You know, like we want to be talking about the players and talking about their ability on the ball and how they won games and their tactics and all this. But look, aside from all that, great win for Kilkenny. Good to see them winning a championship again, especially for a team that we all thought was in transition, and to win it so well. And yeah, they'll take massive momentum going into the All-Ireland series. I've absolutely no doubts about that.
Certainly, and they did it the hard way, going through Dublin in the semi-final. But make no mistake about it, guys, when that result is decided, when they make their decision, when they release their statement, we'll be making a video here on Cluiche about it, so tune in for that. Big shout as well to Carlo, who won the Leinster Intermediate Camogie Championship final. They beat Laois on a score of 2-9 to a goal and 8. But we're moving over now to football and Mayo. Mayo 114, Cavan 117 at McHale Park. I did not see this coming, Liam, to be honest. I thought that Mayo might make it difficult for themselves, but I thought that they would still win. But then you have to give Cavan unbelievable credit for going away to McHale Park and beating Mayo.
I believe it's Cavan's first win since 1948 over Mayo. I believe.
That's crazy. Mayo won an All-Ireland in the time between. They won 2 All-Irelands in the time in between. Maybe this is an omen. Maybe in 3 years they'll win an All-Ireland.
Maybe so. I was going to say never write them off, but it's hard to know at this point with Mayo. Yeah, this is an appalling result for Mayo, especially when you look at the group that they do have with Donegal and Tyrone, two of arguably the strongest sides in Ulster, along with Monaghan and Armagh. Like, you're at home to Cavan, and listen, Cavan are no pushovers either. Which, first of all, great to see Lynch back as well and getting on the score sheet, which is great to see him back for Cavan. But yeah, no, this is a shocking result. I don't know how much longer McStay will be staying in a job after this result. Probably a lot of people probably wanting his head out this evening, to be honest with you, before they even get to the next round of games. But just, I feel like the big issue we've mentioned throughout the entire last couple of months was, I know Cavan only got one today, but for Mayo, 2-pointers. They got one.
Yeah.
Ryan O'Donoghue free, which made it 3 points each, and that was it. Like, that's not good enough. We've wondered for the last number of months, other than Donoghue and possibly as well Mahi Ruan, where else are they going to get 2-pointers from? And they actually have a few from that under-20 team that played against Loudon. They have a couple of them there that they could absolutely take from, and even some of their minor footballers as well in the next couple of years. But for the moment, they just look so void of ideas. Like, they've not had a good... Like, I saw them in Croke Park in the league final against Kerry, and like I said, I was not impressed with them one bit. There didn't seem to be any drive about them. There was a lot
I remember that day, man. I was there with you. I remember being like, do Mayo know that there's new rules? Like,
exactly. Like, there was no ambition to take a shot from outside.
And this year thing as well, I couldn't believe it because they were saying like, oh, well, who cares? I'm like, okay, so if you don't give a shit, then why not try learn how to kick?
Yeah.
Why not try the 2-pointers? If you don't care about the result,
go for it.
Try it.
We said as well that the Leitrim game was the perfect game to try and execute this, and they didn't. And they were extremely poor against Leitrim. Like, you think the season that Leitrim have had, and coming up against, like, let's be honest, arguably one of the best teams in the country, and judging off the league final and the league season, you'd be saying, by that standard, the second best team in the country. Mayo did not execute that. And in the Connacht final, it's amazing to think that we were sitting here a couple of weeks ago saying they were probably unlucky not to win the Connacht final because they missed so many chances that day. But they were just so poor today. Like, I mean, we won 17 to 14 points down in the final minute of the game before Aidan O'Shea got that late consolation of a goal is truly pitiful. Like, they were 117 to 12 points down when Keane Madden scored the final point. And at home, it's just a terrible result for Mayo, and I really don't know where to go from here, to be honest with you. I think their season's going to be over in a couple of weeks' time. I don't see them beating Donegal. I certainly don't see them beating Tyrone after this result either. No, and McStay, I don't think he has long left in the job. And look, they have a lot of good young players coming through. There's no point saying otherwise. They absolutely do, and you'd hope for their sake that they do integrate themselves into the team properly over the next number of years. But yeah, like I said, the pressure's getting to McStay, the pressure's just getting to Mayo in general. And I mean, you mentioned bringing, say, Neil McManus back, whatever. Andy Moore did a great job with Leitrim. Why not give him a warning, to be honest? Or
there's one here, Sean O'Malley says Kevin McStay out, Austin O'Malley in.
Yeah, not a bad shout. Just, I think McStay is kind of, even just the tactics. Like, I don't enjoy. There was chaos with Mayo over the last number of years in football, but it was enjoyable to watch. It's not enjoyable to watch them now. Throughout the league season, I didn't enjoy particularly watching them whenever they were on, to be honest with you. I mean, the one that springs to mind straight away is the league game against Tyrone, which they won at home. Like, that was one of the worst. I had to turn it off. I couldn't watch it. It was dreadful stuff, do you know? So yeah, no. But listen, take nothing away from Cavan. This is a fantastic result for them, and they'll be so pleased going away. I don't see them beating Tyrone, as we've seen in the championship in Ulster. They were miles off Tyrone, and really, there's only a handful of teams I think that can beat Donegal this season. But still, to get a win away to Mayo, regardless of what state Mayo is in, is fantastic. And to put 117 up as well, and to concede as little as 114 as well. Like, Mayo only scored 7 points at halftime. They scored 1-7 in the second half. And it's a job well done by Cavan, so fair play to them.
Yeah, for sure. A2 here says, what's most damning is fans like yourselves have called Mayo's lack of 2-pointers months ago. How can management not see it and work on it? Like, I was more looking at, because again, this is kind of my thought process on it, Liam, is who's the greatest minds in the GA right now? Like managers. In my opinion, Jim McGuinness is definitely one of the best minds in the game right now. And I feel like if you look at what McGuinness is doing, I think you have to look at Pádraig Joyce as well. I think you have to look at Kieran McGeeney. People like that, you look at what they're doing. And if they are fully embracing these new rules and going, we need to learn how to, who's our best kickers from these angles, from the 2-pointers, why are you not getting on that train? Because they're trying to pick up stuff. And if it's the league that literally everybody, which by the way, I hated, but everybody was saying, oh, who cares about the league? I hated that people were saying that. And I think it was one of the main reasons why the attendance in the league final was so low this year. Because if everybody's telling us who cares about it, then why should you care to buy a ticket to go see it? But
biggest crowd.
Anyway, but like just to finish the point, I was wondering, if you don't care about it or if it doesn't matter, why are you not trying to sharpen new tools in the pack? Why are you not trying to get another string to your bow? Why are you persisting? If you do what you always do, you get what you always got. And they don't seem to be any more evolved than they were when McStay came in. And look, the reality is, I think they should have moved for McStay years ago. I think that McStay should have been manager around 2016, to be honest, when he took the Roscommon job. I think Mayo should have gone in for him then. With the new rules, I think someone like an Austin O'Malley probably could be a better shout, because Austin O'Malley has just won an All-Ireland Club Championship with Coola. He's a superb manager and a really, really top-class guy as well. I think he'd be an interesting appointment for Mayo to see what he could do with them. The reality is they need to evolve with the game, and the reality is that when you talk about McStay, I'm not saying that McStay is a bad manager. He's a very, very good manager, but I am saying that they are resisting moving with the times. They are resisting evolving as the game itself is evolving, and I think because of that, they might be better off kind of moving with someone like an O'Malley. But anyway, massive credit has to be given to Cavan. I haven't given them enough credit so far in talking about this. You mentioned about Paddy Lynch returning. This is an outstanding win away from home. It sets them up really, really well to get out of this group now. And the confidence that they'll gain from this, especially heading in against two Ulster rivals. Look, they're not scared of Donegal. They showed that when they beat them in the 2020 Ulster final, when Donegal were seemingly top of the world then too. So they won't fear them. I don't expect them to get anything out of those two games, but if Mayo don't, well, then Cavan are through into the preliminary quarterfinals. So this is why it's a huge, huge victory for them. Now, moving through the groups then, this one, fairly straightforward. Kerry 318, Roscommon 17 points. Fairly straightforward win for Kerry, and including this one here, Clare 116 down 327 at Cusack Park in Ennis. I'm not even going to try to say the full name like Matthew does, but
I'm doing that again.
No. We're not doing that again. But two relatively straightforward wins here.
Yeah, I was kind of watching bits of Kerry Roscommon along with the Galway Roscommon game, or the Galway Antrim game yesterday before I went into Wexford Park. And yeah, Kerry were kind of started slow. Look, Roscommon started well. Should have had a goal after 2 minutes. I don't know what your man was thinking, kicking the ball over the bar from where he was. He should have fisted it over, and Roscommon should have had a goal, and they could have been 1-1, especially when you're going away to Kerry.
You need to go for the knockout when you have it in front of you.
Exactly. It was kind of similar to Antrim against Galway. Just they weren't taking chances, or they weren't taking their chances properly early on. And when you're going up against an opposition that they were, you have to be better than that. And look, there was only 4 points in it at one stage in the second half as well. So it's not like, they were miles off it. But then when you've got a player like David Clifford and he's breaking through about 3-4 players, he's probably the one to take down the gorilla, to be honest with you, in the 100 men's thing. So, but maybe not. But
Cammy, did you see my? I made a reel for TG Carr which went out. It was with Dermot O'Sullivan. So I said the gorilla sees the last man coming, and I played the clip of The Rock running out and hitting that fella's shoulder and sending him back to the 1950s.
I've seen a few of these ones. I've seen Roy Keane. I've seen Mark Henry.
Andrew Porter.
Undertaker, yeah. But it's an interesting debate. But yeah, no, Kerry. at the end of the day, look, they were too strong for Roscommon. And I don't think it was quite like the first game they played against Monaghan last year. It was a bit more competitive today, and I think Jack O'Connor will be pleased with that because it gives them a bit of perspective on what to work on the next day. Like, they didn't have Paddy Clifford here, and like they didn't need him, to be honest with you. I thought Gavin White well at wing back. Sean O'Shea got 7 points. So look, overall a good workout for Kerry, and yeah, they'll happily move on to the next day. For Roscommon, look, it's not the worst result in the world. They'll certainly fancy their chances in this group, I feel, to be honest with you. And they certainly needed some bit of a performance after, especially when you look at their performances against Monaghan in the league final and Galway in this Connacht semi-final. They were atrocious on both those occasions. So something small positive to take from it. For Clare against Down, I mean, you and Matthew, and I would have agree with you on this. I think Clare would be better off in the Tailteann Cup. I'll be frank and honest with you now. I think you'd be better off having a Kildare or a Westmeath or maybe an Offaly in the All-Ireland series than you would Clare, to be honest with you. Like, I don't see what they'll bring to it. And they were just outclassed by Down today, to be honest with you. It really wasn't the context. I mean, when you look at the Down forward line, I have it here in front of me. Pat Havern scored 9 points. Crimmins scored 4 points. McGill scored 7 points. Like, that's 20 points from your 14 and your 2 wing forwards, which is absolutely, that's more than what Clare scored.
Well, I wouldn't make it. This might sound controversial, but I would make it that you have to win the province to get into the Sam Maguire. If you are not there, I wouldn't make it that getting to the provincial final gets you into the Sam Maguire Cup, because sometimes the way that the tie is drawn. Clare, wasn't it just they had to beat 2 Division 4 teams to get in? So how does that qualify you to play against the best teams in the country? If you're in Division 3 and you have to beat 2 teams who are in Division 4, how does that qualify you for the All-Ireland Championship against the best teams in the land? Whereas you've got a Kildare or an Offaly there who got promoted out of Division 3 who didn't. Do you get what I mean? It's an interesting one. And it's a debate worth having, but I personally think I'd look at that a little bit more in the future. That unless you win the province, keep to what the league kind of said was people's positions. Now we move on to this. I'm going to get nice and smug here for a second. Are you ready? I'm going to get nice and smug.
Go ahead.
And the reason I'm going to get smug is the Dubs are back. Oh, yes. Dublin 118, Galway 214 in Pearse Stadium. What a win for the Dubs. Everyone wrote us off. People were saying we were going to get battered in this one. We go away to Galway and we beat them. 118 to 214. Tom Lahiff with the winner after the hooter went with the last kick of the game. We beat Galway in their own backyard. The Dubs are back, baby.
What's that quote from Nigel Farage? You were laughing at me. Well, I have to say you're not laughing. I think that's quite fitting here. Not that I want to be shouting out Nigel Farage, but there you are. But yeah, a savage win, genuinely. Like, I didn't see the game initially. I watched it. I watched bits of it this morning. Watched the clips, the highlights from last night on the Saturday game, and I have to say, very impressed by Dublin. Very, very impressed. They just looked a lot more solid than they did against Meath. Like, against Meath, they ran all over the pitch. They were poor in midfield. They were struggling massive in the back line. Yesterday, the complete opposite. It looked like the Dublin of old, to be honest with you. I'm considered that Galway bet Dublin in Croke Park last year. This was a much needed win from Dublin. They certainly would have wanted to go to Galway and say, listen, you bet us last year, but that was a one-time thing. It's not happening again. I mean, you look at the group that Dublin are in as well. Huge to get a win away in Pearse Stadium as well. So, yeah, no, it could turn their season around. Desi Farrell would have desperately wanted to get a win against one of the All-Ireland favourites. And like I said, look, the main thing, I think, probably even more so than the win, was their competitiveness. Their hunger was there. Firepower up front. I mean, Kieran Kilkenny, you talk about Cian Lynch and how he played and dictated the play. Kieran Kilkenny was immense. Absolutely. He'll go down. I think if you were picking we're not doing an all-time 15 again, because that was hard without having a long time to think about it. But if you were to be picking an all-time 15, like not even just Dublin 15, but all-time 15, it'd be very, very harsh to leave Kieran Kilkenny off it, to be honest with you.
For his longevity. I mean,
But even just his longevity, like even my own father has been watching, like he's 59, he's seen Dublin's best teams over the last number of years, and he said to me that if he was picking a Dublin team in the morning, Kieran Kilkenny is one of the first names in there. And like he's a terrific dual player as well, which is even better as well. He'd be a starter for the Dublin Hurlers as well. He's just an unbelievable athlete as it is, but yeah, no, he was outrageous. Cormac Costello, excellent. You'd feel Gleeson would probably feel disappointed not to have saved his shot. It was fairly straight at him, so he'd probably be disappointed from that. But the instinct was there. It was a mistake by Galway, but the instinct was there from Cormac Costello, and once he's running through on goal, it's very hard to stop him. I mean, you've King Kong there, who got himself a couple of nice points as well. Crucially as well, the king of 2-pointers was his only score of the game today, or yesterday, Shane Walsh. His only point of the game was the 2-pointer that he got early on the game, which is massive. And I mean, you talk about clutch moments. Stephen Cluxton saved from him as well.
Yeah.
Like commentary, they reckon Shane Walsh was already celebrating by the time
that's the 6-point swing. Because let's be honest, Conor Gleeson should have saved Cormac Costello's shot, and Stephen Cluxton probably shouldn't have saved Shane Walsh's. And that 6-point swing where Cluxton, even though he's 43 years of age, made an unbelievable save from Shane Walsh, whereas Conor Gleeson, looking back, would be disappointed that he didn't stop Costello's effort. And look, the reality is we had to show something in this game. A lot of people were saying that we were done. A lot of people were saying that the golden generation crop of Fenton, McCarthy, McCaffrey, Mick Fitzsimons, Mannion being gone, and then losing to Meath, that we were absolutely no threat. But we still have an unbelievable crop of players there. We still have the likes of Kieran Kilkenny, Conor O'Callaghan, Cormac Costello, Sean Bugler, and they all had superb games in this one, and part of the main reasons why we got over the line. Look, the reality is, again, don't get carried away with one result. Don't get carried away with one result either way. Just because we lost to Meath doesn't mean we're washed. Just because we beat Galway doesn't mean we're going to win the All-Ireland now. The games that we have coming up, especially the next against Armagh, that will tell us a lot about where we're at. Because if we double down on it and beat the All-Ireland champions, well then the Meath game maybe was just a blip. But if we are more inconsistent and we have a really flat game in the next day out, well maybe then we're just an inconsistent team now. But it'll be interesting to see what's next after this one. And Desi really spoke. Dublin fans travelled in droves. They were superb. Let's dispel the myth that Dublin don't like an away day. Dublin love an away day. And everybody knows that, who has had Dublin come to play against them in their own backyard. I do think Galway weren't at their best. I'm not naive enough to think that Galway were at their best. They weren't. And Damien Comer being out was a massive blow. The mistake by Gleeson for... the Cormac Costello goal came about of a Galway defensive mistake. And then Gleeson probably should have saved it anyway, but it still ended up in the back of the net. So Dublin definitely had things go their way. But I have to say, just one massive shout out. Stephen Cluxton, that last kick out, that last play, pinpoint pass to Tom Lahiff. Unbelievable. 43 years of age. His kick outs are still as good as ever. The amount of pressure that Meath put them under in the Leinster Championship and the way that Meath dominated the midfield, I was nervous going away to Galway with the middle third that they have, with Paul Conroy, McDade, John Marr. I was thinking this could be pretty rough. And the way that the Dublin lads stood up from Cluxton at the kick outside to Peadar O'Cofaigh-Byrne, who I thought was immense. Tom Lahiff, when he came on, made a huge impact. A lot of lads stood up for Dublin around the middle. And I have to say, that last play, when Cluxton pinged it to Lahiff with all the pressure on, just shows he's just... class is timeless. Cluxton will always have superb kickouts. And then the way that Lahiff finished that off, the way that Dublin worked it, knew that they could run down the clock and then have one more shot to win the game. The way that they managed out the time there, and then the way that Lahiff dropped in, found some space, and the way he finished it was superb. And look, this doesn't mean that we're a cert to win the All-Ireland, but it means that you can't write us off. And I am absolutely buzzing with that win. On top of that, Porter says, at least we had an interesting Leinster football final this year without the Man City of Gaelic football. Dublin only win because of resources. Strongly disagree with that, but we don't have time to jump in to a whole debate about Dublin being funded, etc., etc.
A big shout out to Davy Byrne, who is a mate with my sister, living in the same house in Dublin. So
Very good.
fair play to him. I think my sister said to me earlier, yeah, apparently he got a yellow card. No surprise. I was like, all right.
And Brian put it perfectly here. Brian says, write us off at your peril. Well put, Brian. We're going to move then, and we're going to rapidly run through the Tailteann Cup because I'm looking at the time. I don't want to miss the Sunday game. Tailteann Cup, Group 1, Round 2, Kildare beating Tipperary 319 to 111, and Sligo beating Leitrim 219 to 118 at Pork Sean McDermott. This group had two very obvious favourites to top it, Kildare and Sligo, and in their two games against the other two teams in the group, in Tip and Leitrim, they both won 2 out of 2. So it's gone according to script.
Pretty much so. Good to see Daniel Flynn back playing for Kildare as well, kicking 2-4 as well. You want to see these types of players on the field. So great to see him back. Tough result for Tipperary. Just I suppose their downfall in football kind of continues at the moment, which is a shame to see considering the teams and the players that they have had over the last couple of years. But it was always going to be difficult for them to try and get a result against Kildare. Got to give great credit to Leitrim. I was not expecting that performance. I wasn't expecting that type of result. I actually completely forgot the game was on GAGO. Otherwise, I would have probably tuned into the first few minutes of it. But I saw the scoreline at half time and I was amazed. I was like, right, they're winning by 3 points. Sligo either are very much underperforming or Leitrim are showing that they have good players across their panel, and that we can't just read into what happened in the league or anything like that. And obviously, look, the result against Kildare last week, look, Kildare were one of the favourites for the Tailteann Cup. You can't disregard them that. But no, great credit to Leitrim. They really put it up to Sligo, kept going right to the very end. Sligo in the end probably relatively, comfortable enough in the end to her perspective. But to be 3 points up at half time, against a very, very good Sligo team as well, which when you look back now probably should have knocked Mayo out of the Connacht Championship.
Yeah.
It's a good result for Sligo still. They're through. And look, it's something to work on the next day against Kildare, which will be a very tasty game. So, kind of gone according to script.
Yeah, and look, the reality is Sligo and Leitrim, Leitrim will always raise the game for Sligo, so that was never going to be an easy one. The local rivalry between the two there. Now, Group 2 went according to script on one side. Here on County Offaly beating Waterford by 118 to 113 in Walsh Park, but not in the second game. Wicklow beating Laois 21 points to 16. So this game went spectacularly for you as an Offaly man. Offaly won and Laois lost.
Yeah, I wish I could have said the same yesterday about the hurlers and the hurlers today, but we had, could have been a real nice weekend for Midland County. But really surprised. Well, not even surprised by this because Wicklow put up a huge performance against Dublin in the Leinster Championship. They kicked some really good 2-pointers, and there certainly were no pushover against Dublin in Auckland that day. And going down there is not simple. I don't care what team you are. Not simple going to Auckland, and that was proven yesterday. I think Oisin McConville has done an absolutely magnificent job with Wicklow over the last number of years. He's a proper football man. We actually interviewed him a couple of months back in Newell. He was giving a talk to us down there. Really, really nice fella, gentleman, very passionate about Gaelic football. And yeah, like you see here, huge result for Wicklow. Great to get a 5-point win over Laois. You look at Oisin McGrainer scored 4 points. Mark Kenny scored. Dean Healy with 4 points. Owen Darcy 4 points. So some really, really good performances all around for Laois. It's a very, very bad result for them considering that they were Tailteann Cup runners up last year. You'd be thinking, right, can they make another surge for it this year? I wouldn't say this result sets them back, but considering they do have Offaly in 2 weeks' time in a neutral ground, and given Offaly are on 4 points already, it doesn't look great for them at the moment. For us, I considered going to Waterford before the hurling game, but I just said, look, with time consuming and everything like that, I just said I'll miss it this weekend. From what I gathered from chatting to some journalists at the Wexford game that were at the Waterford game, we missed a lot of chances in the game and probably should have. It kind of gives you the perspective of, look, the scoreline suggests that it was a 5-point game, but if we missed a lot of chances in the game, then it just shows maybe the forwards, just for some of them, maybe it was just an off day for them. But listen, a 5-point win away from home is still a decent result. Dylan Highland came off the bench, did well. Shane Tierney got 5 points. Cottle Flynn at centre forward was supposedly very, very good as well. So you got to take positives from it as well. And yeah, look, no complaints from me. 2 wins from 2. Looking forward to the Laois game in 2 weeks' time. Hopefully I'll be able to get to it no matter where it is. And we move on.
Certainly. Joseph Nash here says, really didn't see the results coming in Limerick versus Cork. It's like Cork burnt out all their energy overthinking about the game in the days before their game. The second big surprise of the day, Cavan beating Mayo. Yeah, absolutely. What a result for Cavan. What a result for Limerick. We're going to move back to the Tailteann Cup now. Group 3's round 2. Antrim 110, Limerick 118, and London 110. Westmeath 26 points. Big wins for Westmeath and for Limerick here.
Yeah, and got to give credit to, London again. They're doing great work at both codes at the moment. I think after about 25 minutes of the game or something like that, like Luke Loughlin's point on the 26th minute made it 1-3 to 3 points. So London were absolute, and they put up a great performance in the first half at home against Roscommon as well. Remember, I think were they winning at halftime 110 to 10 points. So it just shows the work that's going on behind the scenes. There was only 2 points in at halftime. Obviously, look, Westmeath had too much in the end, which you would probably anticipate, but London are pushing above everyone's weight at the moment. They're doing some great work, and they'll take a lot of confidence from this result as well against the Westmeath team, which, realistically, had they got past Kildare, they would have fancied their chances of beating Louth in the Leinster semi-final as well. Yeah. And they could be. It's amazing once Dublin goes out, you actually realise, Jesus, there's a load of teams that could win the Leinster Championship, But yeah, no, listen, Luke Loughlin was doing his stuff again. Ray Connellan scored a couple of points as well. So yeah, good result for McCabe coming up with a clutch 2-pointer as well. So listen, good result for Westmeath. And yeah, it comes down to them and Limerick. Great result for Limerick to go up to Corrigan Park to get a win as well. And in the standard that they did as well, they were fairly comfortable throughout the game. Listening to Valerie Wheeler last night reports, they were very comfortable throughout the game. Antrim just were off the boil really in comparison to how they played against Armagh in the Ulster Championship match. So yeah, no, it'll come down to those two next weekend or in 2 weeks' time, which I kind of anticipated. But good wins for those two.
Certainly. We're going to move then to the Group 4 round 2. Carlow drew at Wexford here 2-16 to 119 in Cullen Park. And Fermanagh bounced back with an impressive win away to Longford in Pearse Park. Longford only got 7 points, while Fermanagh got 2 goals and 19 points.
Yeah, and the last minute Conor Doyle penalty from Carlow as well. I'd say Wexford are sick to their teeth to have lost that. They were 118 to 114 up with a couple of minutes to go, and they kind of look. Let's be honest, they've thrown that result away, and especially I think Wexford are a better football team than Carlow, but you got to give Carlow credit. They went away to Fermanagh last weekend, which I didn't expect, and won. And I suppose a lot of us were questioning.
Shocked at that one.
Exactly.
Shocked at that.
Yeah, like you said it last weekend, and I agreed with you that Fermanagh, probably similarly enough to maybe Offaly over the last couple of years, maybe not taking the Tailteann Cup as seriously as they should be, considering this is a team that should have beaten Down in the Ulster Championship. Down had that late resurgence and won the game in the end. But yeah, if they didn't beat Longford, with all due respect to Longford, then there'd have been serious questions there. So good for them to get off the mark and a comfortable win there in the end. But yeah, I'd say Wexford would be sickened to have lost that game. Now it leaves them and Carlow both on 3 points, Fermanagh on 2, and yeah, it makes the final round very interesting.
Certainly does, and it all is to play for in that group. Now, before we wrap up, I will touch on all of the other competitions that took place across the weekend. Starting with the All-Ireland Under-20 semi-final, we will give a quick word to this because what a win for Louth. I mean, their wave just continues. Goals from Pierce Grimes-Murphy and Shane Lennon, and the late winner came pretty much with the last kick of the game from Adam Gillespie. And they are into the All-Ireland Under-20 football final where they will play against Tyrone. I mean, what a win for Louth it would be if they could get over the line. I do make them underdogs in that final because of Tyrone's firepower up front. The likes of Owen McElhone and McCullough. And Noah Grimes as well is superb for Tyrone. But I'm almost terrified to write Louth off in anything at this stage.
Might be a Louth, the next president of the United States might be a Louth man. The next man on the moon is going to be Louth man. Or Louth are going to win Lee McCarthy soon. You never know. But I really enjoyed watching this game. It was really an enjoyable... Under-20 football is enjoyable to watch because lads just... They're allowed to kind of express themselves a lot more at times than what you would have been over the past previous years in senior football. And just both teams went hammer and tongs at each other in the first half, particularly at the start of the game. it kind of took a while in the second half to get going again, really, up until the end. But yeah, no, like you said, it was a brilliant result for Louth. I mean, Pierce Grimes Murphy's goal was it was kind of like a power strike, kind of similar to like Conor Callahan. You know, the way he kind of strikes the ball through his foot with his laces. You know, it was a really tidy finish. Dara Burns' free towards the end was genuinely one of the best frees I've seen in my life, especially at under 20 level, which I mean, yeah, some of the 2 point, it was 2 point mania at one point. You know, they were just going back and forth with each other with it. Markey came up at the end to kick a 2-pointer to win it, or to level it up, I believe, and Adam Gillespie fisted it over to win the game. And I have to say, on the basis of play, I think Louth deserved it. Mayo put in a huge shift. I was really impressed with their full forward line. Hurley is a player to watch. There, like I said, Burns is a fantastic player. So, like, they do have players for the future. There's no doubt about that. But I just think, like you said, I think Tyrone probably still are the best side. They were much better than Kerry. Well, not much better. Kerry missed a lot of chances last weekend as well, let's be honest. But they were the better side overall last weekend. But like you said, you just wouldn't write Louth off for anything at the moment.
Especially way behind them now.
Exactly, yeah. Now I would love it if we bet them tomorrow in the minor football final. I would hope to burst that little bubble for the moment. But yeah, no, for Louth, it's a massive achievement to be Leinster football champions at senior level. To be
under 20 level.
Yeah, and All-Ireland final in a Leinster minor football final, regardless if they win it or not. Which, look, it'd be very hard to see them not win it tomorrow. They're an exceptional team. But regardless of what happens tomorrow, it's been a terrific season for Louth, and yeah, they've got a team coming for years to come. They're going to be terrific over the next number of years.
No, they're here to stay. Make no mistake about it. This isn't the type of thing where, like, it's Wexford, for example, in 2008, where they make it to a semi-final and they have a generational team for them with the likes of Maddie Ford, Kieran Ling, and then once those lads left, there was like nothing behind them. But this is a team now that has a factory line of talent coming through, and this is here to stay. I want to give a massive shout as well to Cavan, who won the Ulster Intermediate LGFA final. They beat Down by 6-10 to 1-8. And in the junior final in the LGFA, Antrim beat Derry by 3-8 to 2-7. The senior final was played last weekend. Obviously, Armagh beat Donegal there, whereas over in Leinster, Dublin beat Meath last weekend in the Leinster senior LGFA final. But in the junior, Laois lost to Westmeath by 9 points to Westmeath a goal and 12. And in the Leinster junior LGFA final, Louth beat Carlow by 2 goals and 8 points to a goal and 7. Now, I cannot right now find any match reports available on those games. Hopefully they become available over the next while. And that's unfortunately why I don't really have too many notes on those games. But do tune in, because such a massive, especially Cavan putting up 6 goals and claiming the Intermediate Junior Championship. Intermediate Ulster Championship. They have had a really good year. They won the Division 3 league title, and now they've also added another piece of silverware with a provincial title. Yeah,
fair play to them. There's good work going in behind the scenes there. To put up 6 goals in a final as well is very, very impressive. So yeah, massive well done to them. And yeah, like you mentioned, the finals last weekend. You have to feel for me. Well, obviously you're in Dublin, you might not, but and
yeah, I don't.
bet them in the LGFA final as well. You certainly wouldn't have, but to see the position that they were in as well, and then to have lost it in the end, like they lost both finals last weekend in men's and women's very agonizingly, and Jesus, like, how do you recover from that? Because they closed the gap on Dublin from what they had in their previous, you know, but it's just a very, very, very tough defeat for them. You have to feel sorry for them. Armagh, no surprise that they won the Ulster title. They're, like I said, I think they're the second best team currently in the country at the moment. You could probably argue now with maybe Dublin or possibly Galway alongside there as well to challenge Kerry for the All-Ireland. But yeah, I thought it was going to be a very difficult task for Donegal to take them down last weekend, and Armagh did the business, and I expect a lot more from them as the year goes on.
Absolutely. Well, Liam, it's been an absolute ding-dong of an episode. 1 hour, 51 minutes and 40 seconds. Unbelievable episode. 29 viewers still on the stream, guys. We appreciate every single one of you that tuned in throughout the episode. And now, big thanks to Joseph Nash. Massive thanks to Brian O'Riordan. Porta, A2, Sean O'Malley. Who else do I have here? A2, Fia Innes, Scooey, Pádraig Lennon. On top of that, you could really catch me with some bad names here, actually. Jer Gregan, Rudders 38. Who else do we have? John Coleman. Anybody who commented, massive thank you, because you made that episode what it was, made it a really enjoyable one. By the way, don't try catch me out. Don't all of a sudden say your name is Hugh Jass or something like that, because I won't fall for it.
Yeah, like Robbie from Arsenal Fan TV. He had
yeah, that's it, like AFTV getting rage baited. That was just the funniest compilation of all time. But anyway, that's 1 hour and 53 minutes in the book. Thanks so much to Liam for jumping on for another episode. Go give him a follow. And thanks so much to anybody who commented, liked, or watched. We'll be back with you next Sunday at around about 7 or 8 p.m. as usual. Until then, enjoy the week. Enjoy the sunshine. It's beautiful in Ireland right now. Until the next episode, take care.